Mom, it's morning. We should eat. Mommy, wake up! I'm hungry.
What happens when a 5-year-old girl discovers her mother will never wake up again? This is the story of Rosie, a child abandoned by blood, saved by a stranger, and caught in a war between two empires. A story about the families we're born into and the ones we choose. Stay with me and subscribe, because what starts in a cold, dark apartment ends with an empire in flames. The apartment smells of decay and forgotten dreams. In a rundown building on the frozen outskirts of the city, 5-year-old Rosie hasn't eaten in 3 days. She doesn't understand why her mother won't respond. She's tried everything, shaking her, talking to her, even singing the lullaby her mom used to hum on good nights. Those rare nights when there was food in the cupboard, when there was warmth in the radiator, when the needle wasn't more important than her daughter's empty stomach. The child doesn't know that addiction is a disease. She doesn't understand that her mother fought demons Rosie couldn't see. She only knows that the one person who was supposed to protect her is now cold and still. Lauren Hayes died alone on that stained couch. An overdose, the kind that starts as pain management and ends as an escape from reality. The coroner's report would later say she'd been dead for 4 days before anyone noticed. For days. A 5-year-old girl survived alone in that apartment for 4 days, rationing crackers, drinking water from the bathroom sink, believing her mother would eventually wake up. The neighbors only called because of the smell. When the authorities arrive, they find Rosie clutching a broken locket, the only photograph of her mother smiling, from a life before everything fell apart. The image is faded now, barely recognizable, but it's all she has. The little girl doesn't cry when the social workers wrap her in a blanket. She doesn't scream when they take her away from the only home she's ever known. She's too numb, too small to process that her entire world just ended. She just whispers, "When is mommy waking up?" At the city morgue, beneath fluorescent lights that make everything look like a nightmare, a social worker makes the necessary calls. There must be family somewhere. Someone. Anyone who cares that a woman died and a child is now alone in the world. The phone rings in a glass tower across the city, in an office where decisions worth millions are made with surgical precision and zero emotion. A woman's perfectly manicured hand reaches for the phone. Her nails are blood red. Lydia Lawson. When she hears the name, Lauren Hayes, her carefully composed face flickers, just for a heartbeat. Fear. Recognition. Then, like a switch being flipped, disgust. "Scatter the ashes," she says coldly. "No service. No funeral." The social worker hesitates. "Ma'am, there's a child. Lauren's daughter. She's 5 years old. Then let her die too." The line goes dead. 3 days later, at a gray municipal building that smells of cheap coffee and bureaucratic despair, a man walks through the door who doesn't belong there. Ethan Hale. At 38, Ethan is a legend in the tech world and a ghost in the real one. He built a billion-dollar empire from nothing but code and calculation. A company called Hale Technologies that revolutionized data security and made him one of the youngest self-made billionaires in history. But he's also the man who once fired 300 employees via email on Christmas Eve without a second thought. The man who hasn't been photographed smiling in over a decade. The man whose own board members schedule meetings around his moods because everyone is terrified of him. He's brilliant. He's ruthless. And he's completely, utterly alone. He's here for a routine corporate donation meeting. His company funds a children's welfare program purely for tax purposes. Nothing more. Just another box to check on his assistant's endless to-do list. But then he sees her. Rosie sits in a plastic chair against the far wall, her legs too small for her feet to touch the ground. She's clutching that broken locket in both hands, staring at nothing. She doesn't fidget like other children. Doesn't cry. Doesn't beg for attention. She just waits. Like she's been trained by life itself to expect absolutely nothing from the world. Something in Ethan's chest cracks. A sound he hasn't heard in 15 years. He doesn't know why he asks. Doesn't know why he cares. But he finds himself turning to the social worker and saying, "That girl. The one by the window. What happens to her?" The social worker, a tired woman named Patricia who's seen too many cases like this, sighs deeply. Foster system, most likely. Maybe adoption if we get lucky. But at her age, with her background, with the trauma she's experienced. Honestly, Mr. Hale, I have to be realistic. The statistics aren't good. Most kids like her age out of the system without ever finding a permanent home. Ethan stares at Rosie for a long, silent moment. In her face, he sees something he thought he'd buried 15 years ago in a cemetery plot next to his father, his younger sister, Emma. Emma, who died at 16 in a car accident that Ethan survived without a scratch. Emma, whose last words, as the ambulance sirens wailed in the distance, were, "Don't leave me alone, Ethan. Please, don't leave me." He failed her then, survived when she didn't, and he spent 15 years building walls so high that nothing could ever hurt him again. But looking at Rosie, those walls crack, crumble, fall. "I'll take her," Ethan says quietly. The room goes completely silent. Patricia blinks. "I'm sorry, what?" "I'll take the girl. I want to foster her. Adopt her, if that's possible." Patricia stammers, her clipboard nearly falling from her hands. "Mr. Hale, this isn't. The process is extremely complicated. There are home visits, psychological evaluations, background checks, financial reviews, parenting classes." Ethan's eyes are steel, cold, final. "Then start them. Today. Right now." "Sir, even with your resources, these things take time." "How much time can money buy?" "Money talks." Influence shouts. Within 6 hours, temporary custody is arranged. When Ethan approaches Rosie, she looks up at him with eyes that have seen too much for 5 years. "Are you going to hurt me?" she whispers. Ethan kneels. For the first time in years, his voice softens. "No, never. I promise." She takes his hand. The Hale estate sits on 12 acres of manicured perfection, all marble columns, vaulted ceilings, and windows that stretch toward the sky. It's beautiful. It's cold. It's a museum pretending to be a home. When Ethan brings Rosie through the front door, she freezes. She's never seen anything like this. Margaret Hale, Ethan's 72-year-old mother, rushes down the grand staircase with tears in her eyes. Where Ethan is ice, Margaret is fire. She scoops Rosie up like she's found buried treasure. "Oh, sweetheart. Welcome home. Welcome home." For Margaret, Rosie is a second chance. After Emma's death, this house became a tomb. Her sons retreated into themselves. Her husband died of a heart attack from the grief. The laughter died. The light died. But now there's a child again. A heartbeat. Margaret's joy is interrupted by a cold voice from the shadows. "What the hell is this?" Julian Hale emerges from his wing of the estate, the part no one visits anymore. At 33, Julian is a ghost story. Once a brilliant forensic analyst, his life shattered 3 years ago in a car accident that left him with chronic pain and a dependency on prescription pills. He walks with a cane, rarely leaves his rooms, and trusts no one. Ethan's jaw tightens. "Her name is Rosie. She's staying with us." Julian laughs bitterly. "You bought a kid? Like a rescue dog? Jesus, Ethan, even for you." "Watch your mouth," Margaret snaps. "This house needs life again. And you," she points at Julian, "need to remember what it feels like to care about something other than your own misery." Julian storms off, his cane echoing on marble floors. But Rosie doesn't cry. She just watches, learning, surviving. Over the following weeks, Rosie begins to adjust to a world she never imagined existed. She's given a bedroom 3 times the size of the entire apartment where her mother died. Margaret fills it with everything a child could dream of: books with gilded pages, toys still in their packaging, a canopy bed fit for a princess, and windows that flood the room with sunlight. But Rosie barely touches any of it. Instead, she collects small, broken things. Ethan's old wristwatch that doesn't work anymore, but still makes a soft ticking sound when she shakes it. A faded family photo she found in the library showing the Hales before tragedy struck. Everyone smiling, everyone whole. Her mother's broken locket, which she hides under her pillow every night and takes out only when she's alone. She's afraid that if she gets too comfortable, too happy, it will all disappear. Like it did before. Ethan doesn't know how to be a parent. He's never wanted children, never imagined himself in this role. He provides everything a child could need. New clothes tailored to fit her perfectly, gourmet meals prepared by a private chef, tutors for every subject, medical care that catches up on years of neglect. But he doesn't know how to connect. He'll sit across from Rosie at the massive dining room table in complete silence, typing on his laptop while she eats alone, the sound of her small fork against fine china echoing in the cavernous room. Until one night, 3 weeks after her arrival, Rosie can't sleep. She climbs out of her enormous bed, pads down the long hallway in her bare feet, and finds Ethan's office. The door is cracked open, light spilling out. He's still working at midnight, as always. She pushes the door open slowly. He looks up, startled. For a moment, irritation flashes across his face. He doesn't like interruptions. But when he sees her small frame in the doorway, something softens. "Can't sleep?" he asks. She shakes her head. "I have bad dreams. About my mom. About being alone again." Ethan stiffens. He doesn't do feelings. Doesn't do comfort. Doesn't know the first thing about soothing a frightened child. But something in her eyes, Emma's eyes, full of fear and trust in equal measure, breaks through every wall he's built. "Come here," he says quietly. She climbs into his lap. He awkwardly wraps one arm around her, still typing with the other hand, trying to maintain his work. But gradually, slowly, his typing slows. His other arm wraps around her. She curls into his chest, and for the first time since her mother died, Rosie feels safe. She falls asleep there, breathing softly against his shirt. Ethan sits frozen, afraid to move and wake her. He looks down at this tiny person who's somehow become his responsibility, his purpose. And he realizes with absolute terror that he would burn the world down to keep her safe. From that night forward, Ethan's ice begins to thaw. But while Rosie brings light to the Hale house, darkness gathers outside its walls. Ethan's company, Hale Technologies, is under siege. A rival firm, Lawson Industries, has been systematically destroying them, acquiring their biggest clients with offers too good to refuse, poaching key employees with golden parachutes, and somehow, impossibly, accessing proprietary algorithms that should be locked behind layers of encryption. Someone inside Hale Technologies is betraying them. There's a mole. During a particularly tense emergency board meeting, Ethan's CFO, a man named Grant Mercer who's been with the company for 8 years, who Ethan trusted with everything, proposes a radical solution: merge with Lawson Industries. Combine forces. Stop the bleeding before it's too late. "It's the only way to survive," Grant says earnestly. "They're too powerful. If we join them, we keep our jobs, our investments." Ethan's response is ice. "We don't negotiate with vultures." This meeting is over. But the bleeding continues. Stock prices plummet 20% in a week. Investors panic. Journalists smell blood in the water. The empire Ethan built from nothing is crumbling. Then, one seemingly ordinary evening, Rosie overhears something that changes everything. She's playing quietly in the hallway outside Ethan's office, building a tower from blocks that Margaret gave her, when Grant arrives for a private late-night meeting. The door is cracked open just slightly. Rosie doesn't mean to eavesdrop. She's just there, small and invisible. She doesn't understand most of the words, complicated terms like encryption keys and offshore servers and wire transfers. But she hears the tone in Grant's voice, the nervousness, the fear, and she hears him say one name very clearly: Lawson. That night at dinner, with the innocence that only a child possesses, Rosie asks, "Why was Mr. Grant talking to Lawson people on the phone in your office? I thought you didn't like them." Ethan's fork stops midair. His eyes lock onto her. "What did you say?" Margaret and Julian freeze. "Mr. Grant," Rosie repeats, confused by the sudden tension. "He was on the phone. He sounded scared. He said Lawson a lot." Within 48 hours, Ethan's personal security team, former FBI, CIA, people who know how to find ghosts, uncover the truth. Grant Mercer has been selling company secrets for 18 months. Detailed algorithm breakdowns, client lists, acquisition strategies, everything. He confesses when confronted. The money was too good. His gambling debts were too high. The Lawsons promised him a fortune. He's arrested. The breach is contained. Hale Technologies survives by a thread. But across the city, in a penthouse suite overlooking the glittering skyline, Frederick and Lydia Lawson receive the news with cold fury. "The girl," Lydia hisses, pacing like a caged animal. "That damn girl overheard him. She's the reason we failed." Frederick's eyes narrow dangerously. "Who is she?" "This orphan Hale adopted." Lydia's face goes pale, because she knows exactly who Rosie is. And the secret she's buried for 5 years is about to claw its way out of the grave. 3 months later, the annual Tech Innovators Charity Gala brings together the city's elite. The Hales attend, Ethan in a sharp tuxedo, Margaret glowing with pride, and Rosie in a velvet dress that makes her look like a little princess. Julian reluctantly joins them, leaning on his cane, his expression sour. The ballroom glitters with champagne and false smiles. This is where billion-dollar deals are made over appetizers, where enemies dance and plot each other's destruction. And that's where Rosie meets Lily Lawson. Lily is 8 years old, blonde, and dripping with diamonds. She's been raised in a world where power is everything and kindness is weakness. When she sees Rosie, a girl her parents speak about with such venom, she approaches with a cruel smile. "You're the orphan," Lily says sweetly. "The one they found with her dead mom." Rosie's face flushes. "Don't talk about my mom." "Why? Because she was a junkie? My mother says your family is trash. That you're just." Rosie pushes her. Lily stumbles, screams, and suddenly the ballroom erupts. Frederick Lawson storms over, his face red. "Your brat assaulted my daughter." Ethan appears like a thundercloud. "Your daughter was bullying mine." "Back off." "Yours." Lydia's voice cuts through the chaos. "She's arrived, poised and poisonous." "Interesting choice of words, Mr. Hale. Tell me, does the child know who she really is? Where she really comes from?" The room goes silent. Margaret steps forward, fierce. "That's enough. You have no claim." "Don't I?" Lydia's smile is vicious. She looks down at Rosie with something between disgust and guilt. "Tell them, Frederick. Tell them about Lauren." Frederick's jaw clenches. And in that moment, Ethan realizes they know something about Rosie's mother. Something buried. The gala dissolves into scandal. The Hales leave immediately. But the damage is done. The war has begun. Back at the mansion, Julian does what he does best. He investigates. He digs into Lauren Hayes' past, pulling records that should have been sealed, following digital breadcrumbs through corporate databases and police archives, hacking into systems that thought they were unhackable. He works through the night, through the pain that still radiates from his old injuries, driven by something he hasn't felt in years: purpose. What he finds changes everything. Lauren Hayes wasn't just a random addict who died alone. 15 years ago, she was Lauren Lawson, Lydia's younger sister. The brilliant, beautiful golden child who got pregnant at 22 by a young executive named Frederick Lawson, who would later become Lydia's husband. The family was humiliated, scandalized. Their pristine corporate image was at risk. Lauren refused to abort the pregnancy. She wanted to keep her baby, to build a life. So the Lawson family gave her an ultimatum: disappear completely, or they would destroy her reputation so thoroughly she'd never work, never find housing, never escape. She chose to disappear, changed her name to Hayes, moved to the poor side of the city, kept her daughter, and tried desperately to survive in a world that had erased her. But Frederick and Lydia had one more card to play, one final act of cruelty. 10 years ago, Lauren was working as a junior analyst at a small tech firm, barely making ends meet, but honest work. When that company's data was breached, Lauren was framed. Evidence was planted in her work computer. Financial records were forged showing payments from competitors. Her career was destroyed overnight. She became unemployable in the entire industry. No one would hire her. No one would believe her protests of innocence. The downward spiral began. Poverty deepened. Desperation set in. And eventually, the drugs became the only escape from a life that had been systematically dismantled. The pills first, then the needles, then the final overdose in a dark apartment while her 5-year-old daughter slept in the next room. And Lydia watched it all happen. Her own sister. She could have stopped it at any point, could have shown mercy, could have helped. But she chose her reputation instead, chose the Lawson name, chose to let Lauren die slowly, piece by piece, until nothing was left but a body in a morgue that no one claimed. When Julian presents his findings to Ethan at 3 in the morning, spreading documents across the kitchen table, the brothers share a look of pure, incandescent rage. "They killed her," Ethan says quietly, his voice trembling with barely controlled fury. "They didn't put a gun to her head, but they murdered her just the same. They destroyed her life deliberately, systematically, and left her to die." Margaret, listening from the doorway in her bathrobe, covers her mouth in horror. "Dear God." "And Rosie?" Julian nods grimly. Rosie is Frederick's biological daughter, which makes her heir to the Lawson fortune. Ethan finishes, understanding flooding through him. If anyone ever finds out, if the truth ever surfaces, That's why Lydia is so desperate, Julian says. It's not about the girl. It never was. It's about the scandal, the exposure, the fact that their entire empire was built on destroying Lauren, and now her daughter could bring it all crashing down. Margaret's voice is steel. So what do we do? Ethan stands, his decision already made. We go to war. Within days, the Lawsons file for emergency custody. Their legal argument is elegant and cruel. Rosie is Frederick's biological daughter. Lydia is her legal aunt. Ethan is a stranger who manipulated the system to illegally obtain custody of a vulnerable child. The media devours it. Headlines scream, "Billionaire tech CEO in child custody scandal. Lawson family demands return of stolen heiress." Ethan's lawyers are the best money can buy, but the law is complicated. Blood relation matters. And the Lawsons have public sympathy. They're framed as the grieving family trying to save their sister's orphan child from a cold, calculating businessman. Rosie, caught in the middle, doesn't understand. She overhears arguments, sees the stress on Ethan's face, watches Margaret cry. One night, she asks Ethan, "Are they going to take me away?" Ethan kneels, looking her in the eye. "Not while I'm breathing." But he's terrified, because he's realized something that changes everything. He loves her, not as a project, not as redemption, as his daughter, and he might lose her. The custody hearing is brutal. Lydia takes the stand, playing the role of the repentant sister perfectly. She cries. She apologizes for not being there sooner. She claims she's only just discovered Rosie's existence and wants to honor Lauren's memory by raising her niece. It's a performance worthy of an Oscar. Ethan's lawyers counter with the truth. Lydia abandoned Lauren, refused to claim her body, said let her die too when told about Rosie. But there's no recording, no proof. It's hearsay. The judge is sympathetic to Lydia. Then Julian takes the stand. Wheelchair-bound, exhausted, but fierce, Julian presents every document, every email, every piece of evidence showing how the Lawsons destroyed Lauren systematically, methodically, cruelly. The courtroom is silent. They didn't just abandon her, Julian says. They murdered her reputation, her livelihood, her hope. And when she finally broke, when she died alone with a needle in her arm, they felt nothing. Nothing. He turns to Lydia. "You want to honor your sister? You killed her." Lydia's mask slips. For just a moment, the courtroom sees the truth. But it's not enough. The judge calls a recess to review the evidence. The decision will take weeks. And in those weeks, everything falls apart. The tension builds for weeks. Every day brings new legal motions, new threats, new pressure. Rosie, caught in the middle, feels everything even though the adults try to shield her. She overhears whispered conversations, sees the stress etched on Ethan's face, watches Margaret cry when she thinks no one is looking. Children always know when the adults are lying about everything being okay. During a supervised visit at a neutral facility, mandated by the court while the custody battle rages, Rosie reaches her breaking point. The social worker is talking to Ethan in one room while Rosie waits in another. The walls feel like they're closing in. The fluorescent lights are too bright. Everything is too much. She just wants it all to stop. She doesn't want to be the reason families are destroying each other. She doesn't want to be important. She just wants to be a normal little girl. So she runs. Out the door. Down the hallway. Through the building's front entrance. Into the parking lot where cars are backing out. Moving. Not seeing the small figure darting between them. She doesn't see the black sedan until it's too late. The screech of brakes. The sickening thud of impact. Then silence. Rosie wakes up in a hospital bed surrounded by machines that beep and hum. Her arm is in a cast. Her head throbs with pain from the concussion. But she's alive. Barely. The doctors say she's lucky. 3 feet to the left, and the car would have killed her. Ethan arrives at the hospital like a force of nature, wild-eyed, disheveled, more terrified than he's ever been in his life. When he bursts through the door and sees her, small, bandaged, hooked up to monitors, he breaks. For the first time since Emma died, Ethan Hale falls to his knees beside the hospital bed and sobs. Great, heaving sobs that shake his entire body. "I'm sorry," he whispers through his tears, clutching her hand like she might disappear. "I'm so sorry, Rosie. I should have protected you better. I should have kept you safe. This is my fault. All of this is my fault." Rosie, crying too, reaches out with her good hand and touches his face. "Don't let them take me," she pleads. Please, Daddy, don't let them take me away from you. Daddy. It's the first time she's called him that. The first time she's acknowledged what they've both felt but never said. Ethan looks up at her, tears streaming down his face, and something inside him solidifies, hardens, becomes unbreakable. Never, he says with absolute certainty. I will never let anyone take you from me. I promise. I promise, sweetheart. He climbs onto the hospital bed carefully, mindful of her injuries, and holds her. She falls asleep in his arms, finally feeling safe despite everything. In the hallway outside, even Julian, cynical, broken, bitter Julian, has tears in his eyes. He's leaning heavily on his cane, but his jaw is set with determination. And Margaret, watching her son finally become whole again after 15 years of emptiness, knows with absolute certainty they will fight until their last breath. They will burn the world down if that's what it takes. The Lawsons have no idea what's coming. Ethan doesn't wait for the judge. While Rosie recovers, he launches a full-scale assault. Hale Technologies unveils their next-generation medical AI platform, a revolutionary diagnostic tool that will save millions of lives. It's been in development for 3 years, and it's spectacular. The product launch is at the same convention center where the Lawsons are hosting their annual shareholder meeting. Poetic. But the real weapon isn't the technology. It's the data. Remember that mole, Grant? He wasn't just stealing for the Lawsons. He was documenting everything. And Julian found his insurance files. At the product launch, with cameras rolling and the world watching, Ethan doesn't just present his innovation. He presents the evidence. Every bribe, every stolen algorithm, every illegal corporate maneuver the Lawsons have orchestrated for 15 years, including the planted evidence that destroyed Lauren. The presentation is clinical, devastating, irrefutable. The Lawson family, Ethan says coldly, built their empire on theft, fraud, and the destruction of anyone who threatened them, including one of their own. Lauren Hayes, born Lauren Lawson, was framed, blacklisted, and left to die by the very people now claiming to care about her daughter. He presses a button. Lauren's face appears on the screen, young, beautiful, full of hope. Then another photo, Lauren's body at the morgue. This is what they did. And they will never, ever touch her daughter again. The room erupts. Journalists shout questions. Cameras flash. Within an hour, Lawson Industries stock crashes. The SEC launches an investigation. Frederick is arrested at the airport trying to flee to a non-extradition country. Lydia, cornered, makes one final play. She shows up at the Hale mansion that night, alone. No lawyers. No husband. No armor. Just Lydia, for perhaps the first time in her life, stripped of every defense. Margaret tries to turn her away at the door, her hand firm on the doorknob. You have no right to be here. Please, Lydia begs, and the word sounds foreign in her mouth. 5 minutes. That's all I ask. 5 minutes, and I'll leave forever. Ethan, against every instinct screaming at him to slam the door in her face, allows it. They meet in the library. Ethan, Julian, Margaret, and Lydia. The same room where the Hale family once gathered for birthdays and holidays. Now the setting for a reckoning. Rosie is upstairs, finally sleeping peacefully after days of nightmares. Lydia looks haggard under the soft lamplight. Her designer clothes are wrinkled. Her makeup is smudged. Her hands shake. For once, the mask is completely gone, and what's underneath is just a woman drowning in guilt. I didn't know, she begins, her voice barely above a whisper. About the frame-up. About destroying Lauren's career. Frederick did it without telling me. He said he was handling the situation. I found out years later, and by then, Lauren was already gone. And yet you still refuse to claim her body, Margaret says, her voice colder than winter. You told them to let Rosie die too. Your own niece. Your sister's child. Lydia flinches like she's been physically struck. I was afraid. Of the scandal. Of Frederick. You don't know what he's capable of when he's threatened. Of losing everything I'd built. The company, the reputation, the life I'd created. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I know I don't. But I need you to know, I see Lauren's face every night. Every single night when I close my eyes. I hear her voice from 15 years ago, begging me to help her, and I said no. I chose wrong. And I will spend the rest of my life knowing that I killed my sister. Tears stream down her face, ugly and real. It's the first genuine emotion she's shown in years, maybe decades. Ethan's voice is granite. Immovable. Final. You're right. You don't deserve forgiveness. And you will never, ever see Rosie again. The court will rule in our favor. Your husband's arrest guarantees that. You've lost everything. Your company, your reputation, your freedom. And I hope every day you live, you remember why. Lydia nods slowly, accepting the sentence. She stands to leave, her legs unsteady, and pauses at the library door. Her hand rests on the frame. One thing, she says without turning around. Please, tell Rosie. Tell her that her mother loved her more than anything in this world. That Lauren's last words to me, the last time we spoke before she changed her name and disappeared, were if anything ever happens to me, promise me you'll take care of my baby. I failed. I failed in every possible way. But tell her she was loved. Desperately loved. She walks out into the night, into the rain that's begun to fall, and disappears into the darkness. The library is silent for a long moment. Margaret touches Ethan's shoulder gently. Will you tell her? When she's older? Ethan looks up at the ceiling, toward Rosie's room where she sleeps, surrounded by her collected treasures. Someday, when she's ready to hear it. When she can understand that people are complicated, that guilt and love can exist together, that her mother tried her best in an impossible situation. Julian, leaning on his cane, adds quietly, and that the family you choose is worth fighting for. They all nod. The battle is over. They've won. But the real victory isn't the court case or the destroyed empire or the justice served. The real victory is upstairs, sleeping safely, dreaming of better tomorrows. The legal battle is over. Ethan's adoption of Rosie is finalized. Frederick is in prison. Lydia has vanished from public life. Lily Lawson, now living with distant relatives, sent Rosie a letter of apology. Rosie hasn't opened it yet. Maybe someday. The Hale mansion has changed. There's laughter now. Rosie's artwork covers the refrigerator. Her toys are scattered across the living room. Margaret bakes cookies, and the smell fills the house. Julian, sober for 5 months and walking without his cane after finally agreeing to surgery, has started consulting again. He's different now, softer. He teaches Rosie chess, and she beats him more often than she should. Ethan works from home 2 days a week. He attends Rosie's school plays. He reads her bedtime stories. He's learning to be a father, and though he still struggles with emotion, Rosie knows she's loved. One evening, Rosie asks if they can visit her mother's grave. They drive to the small cemetery where Lauren's ashes were finally laid to rest. Paid for by Margaret, marked with a proper headstone that reads, Lauren Hayes, beloved mother, you are not forgotten. Rosie places flowers on the grave. Ethan stands behind her, a hand on her shoulder. I'm okay, Mom, Rosie whispers. I'm safe now. I have a family. A real one. She looks up at Ethan. Right, Daddy? Ethan's eyes shimmer. Right, sweetheart. Forever. They drive home as the sun sets, painting the sky in gold and amber. Back at the mansion, Margaret has dinner ready. Julian sets the table. For the first time in 15 years, the Hale family sits together without ghosts at the table. After dinner, Rosie goes to her room and pulls out her art supplies. She's been working on something special. An hour later, she presents it to the family. A drawing of the 4 of them, Rosie, Ethan, Julian, and Margaret, standing together under a golden sky. In the corner, barely visible, is a small figure watching over them. Lauren. Margaret cries. Julian smiles. Ethan frames it immediately. That night, as Ethan tucks Rosie into bed, she asks, Do you think Mom would be happy? That I'm here with you? Ethan thinks of Lydia's last words. I know she would be. She wanted you to be safe, to be loved. And you are. I love you, Daddy. I love you too, Rosie. More than you'll ever know. He kisses her forehead and turns off the light, leaving the door cracked open, the way she likes it. Downstairs, Margaret and Julian sit in the living room. They don't need to speak. The house feels different now. Whole. Julian breaks the silence. Emma would have loved her. Margaret nods. She would have. And she'd be proud of Ethan. Of all of us. Rosie saved the Hales just as much as they saved her. She brought light into a house full of shadows. She forced a man who had forgotten how to feel to remember what love means. And in the end, that's what family is, choosing to love someone, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Because love isn't about perfection. It's about presence. And sometimes, the families we build are stronger than the ones we're born into. If you believe this, hit the like button and subscribe to this channel for more stories.